All right, everybody, this is your weekly analysis um, for September 3rd. Well, really, because we have a holiday in the US this week, I'm sort of anticipating lesser volume. So this is your weekly analysis starting on the 4th, but technically really the 5th through the 8th for the first main week of September. Before we get going, I'm going to pull up the economic calendar for the week because that is the first thing that you should do every single week. There you go. And I want to make sure that I just see. I want to see medium and high impact only. Oh, can't do both. Allegedly. All right. Well, let's look at the high impact ones, then we'll just graze through the others as well, and then make sure that we're good on the majors that we want to look at here. Yes, 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 yes. Okay, great. Cool. So, pretty quiet up until later in the week for the U.S. We've got the RBA interest rate decision, which will be a big one on Monday afternoon, leading into London for Tuesday morning. And then we've also got some more AU news there on Tuesday. Let's just double check on this. Yeah, so we have Christine Lagarde speaking on Monday morning as well. Again, with I think the less volume in the market, really anything on Monday shouldn't do too much. But is there anything interesting that we want to look at in terms of all this stuff? Maybe the PMI, as that speaks to inflation. Maybe just keep a little bit of an eye on that. And then, we'll also look at this quarter over quarter or every 3 month cycle company gross profits in AU, just to see as a barometer how their economy and businesses are doing. Into Tuesday, we have Christine Lagarde speaking again. That might hold a little bit more weight as the markets start to really come online. We've also got another PMI in there. Just PMIs generally, PMIs and CPIs, I always pay attention to in some degree because it tells me if the economy is trending up or down in terms of inflation and just overall performance and health. Other than that, factory orders in the U.S. might have a little bit of push, seeing as there's nothing else going on in the session on Tuesday, but hopefully it'll be kind of a smooth sailing day. And then on Wednesday, we start to get a lot more stuff. We have some PMI data coming out. That'll certainly move things around. Lots of stuff stacked here. A little bit before market. Wouldn't anticipate anything too crazy. Probably closer to NYSE open on Wednesday. One of the Fed members speaking here as well. I don't recall if he's hawkish or dovish, but you can look that up. It doesn't matter too much because it's, again, late in the day. And then into Asian session, we have a red folder for AU. Certainly will be a mover and a shaker. Balance of trade should definitely spur some sort of speculation. And then we have the Bank of Japan Nakagawa speaking, as well as an RBA speech slightly later before London opens up. Nothing too crazy into London really all week. Let's go ahead and we'll drop the high impact ones in here again and just double check. But yeah, nothing too crazy all week really for London Zurich sessions. Thursday, we have jobless claims. This is definitely going to move some shit around. We have 3 Fed talking late in the day, followed up by Bar much later in the day. This is going to be a mover for sure. I would anticipate that the sort of moves will happen early on Thursday. One more time, let's just go look at the high impact stuff. So, okay. I take back what I said. Unemployment rate and GDP will both certainly spur some things on Monday and I'm sorry, that's the following week. Yeah, nothing really. ISM PMI on Wednesday. I'm not reading the dates here. My apologies. That is into next week. Yeah, so ISM PMI on Wednesday is a big one. Mostly just AU stuff. So I mean, I would sort of anticipate a pretty packed Sydney and Asian session, and then also a generally standard moving London and US sessions. That's really what I gathered from all that. So, a few things to make note of. I will write those down on my little whiteboard here next to my desk so I know what is there. Maybe I'll just print it out. Who knows? Um, in terms of technical analysis, let's just wipe a bunch of this shit out. Sort of as anticipated, a little bit of an overshoot here until news started to trickle in for the week. And then even though unemployment was higher, mixed data apparently is still bullish for the dollar. So we are retesting these highs, and we certainly want to mark that out. Let's go up to the daily real quick. This is now a valid pullback. If this extends to the upside, this would be a structural point as well. So big major decision here. These things are very often made around news, so it kind of makes sense that that sort of play would happen there in hindsight. Let's do this because these are the highs that really need to be pushed past in order to extend this, not only make the structural point, but extend this flow to the upside. And then we have the remainder of this previous supply where price originally reacted from. So I would say as we enter this new week, just looking at this right here, we are interested as to whether the dollar is going to break or bounce from this zone first and foremost, and then will price exceed this level, right? This is going to be a major one, and I would make that solid, and I'd probably make it, yeah, super fat, because I want to know. This is a big one. If price cranks above that, if we see price trend into new highs, into the 105s or even the 104.5s, and then keep on going into like this week or next week, I would highly anticipate another rate hike coming out of the Fed, because that means that their fight against inflation really isn't doing very much. Now, if we were to see, for example, jobless data or unemployment data start to show even more of an uptick, we may see some sort of ranging or transitional price action, or even just an overshoot and price come back down into the 103s, as that would sort of show that recessionary pressures are coming in, that the Fed's lagging policy effects may kind of start to be bubbling to the surface, and that would be net negative for the dollar. Again, we'll see. I think all the people talking at the Fed are really gonna, give mixed signals as they usually do, about what their next move is going to be. But I think from a technical level, if price goes above this 104 260 handle here up into the 104 500s or higher, I think we start to get a lot better chance that the Fed will continue to increase rate hikes, because they're trying to bring the value of the dollar back down to combat inflation. Okay, so this is clearly our current leg here, intraday leg, excuse me. Again, this is the current supply here, so I'm just going to mark this out as a flow high. There you go. Boom. And that's really all we need right now. I would say we can comfortably call this our daily demand, because we have multiple days, multiple days of support coming out of that area there, and then we know that we're trading within this leg right here, roughly. So we can ask ourselves, okay, where was our last major injection of both supply in this area? Again, I think we could tighten it up into that tap here, big decision here, and then, retap, liquidity sweep, and then that further drop down below that previous daily zone. Now price is broken out of that flow here. We have a nice break of flow right there. So officially switch the intraday control. This is certainly our sort of current dominant demand here in flow. And yeah, that's what we're looking for. So can price stay above this? And ultimately, can price stay above what is now this daily zone down here? 1 second. Um, I'm gonna want to refine this down a little bit, if at all possible. Uh, yeah. So logically, you know, if price were to pull back and try and grab some more orders, I think ideally we'd want to see buyers for an upside play. We'd want to see buyers pierce past this red line, past this 104, 100 thing, create a slightly newer high, just showing us that their intent is to expand price to the upside. I would highly anticipate though that at some point price is going to dip back down into this 103 300 handle, to try and grab some more orders because of how much liquidity was put in here, and this is very, very clearly a whale price point, right? So I would sort of anticipate the price is going to come back down into this. Now, if price cannot crank above this red line and these previous flow highs, I would consider shorts back down into this area because it could certainly continue further down below that liquidity and be a nice interweek play. So really interesting sort of breaker bounce. Scenario here as we go into the new week. If price breaks into new highs, bias leans bullish, and look for a pullback. If instead we see supply hold, then consider shorts back into the 103 range for a retest or range reversal. Boom. And there is our entire plan for the week, guys. So if price continues to break above it, business as usual. Look for order flow retest if price gets above this 104 region here, you know, up into that stuff. Look for some sort of retest or reaccumulation. Looking for a transitional phase that either continues, transitions, pulls back down, and then finds a price point that we like that shows high liquidity. Or we see a transitional phase, some sort of liquidity sweep, and then immediate break of flow back into bullish flow. We'll look for the first retest intraday on maybe the H1 or the M30, for those key levels, and then keep on pushing upwards. If instead price cannot break above really this area right over here, this 104.87 region right here, then I think that we potentially want to look for shorts. It's a little bit more, I don't want to say sketchy, but slightly higher risk, just because of how dominant the dollar has been and with a lot of news coming out. So, you know, be careful, maybe roll your stops to break even a little bit faster or give it a little bit wider berth in terms of your stop loss. If we do look to take that, as it would be much more of an intra-week play, theoretically, back down to this area or lower. Who knows? But breaker bounce situation here, and that's going to really help inform us on Aussie dollar as well as British pound. So let me have some water. Aussie dollar has been in this big funky range all week, right? We had a couple of days where it just kind of sideways, sideways, sideways. Now, after breaking out of this previous range, these two gray boxes here, we established another one. We cranked into a new high. That's what I'm trying to get at. So price came down, failed to break lower, and then broke slightly higher, right? Didn't really break past any major supplies here, but there's definitely some targets to the upside still it could go to. Created this little range here for a couple of days, and now we're coming back down. Now, this could certainly be a retest back into this area to try and hop back up into that. And I think that's also in line, theoretically, with the dollar moving upwards and rejecting back down into the range. So keep that in mind, depending on how Aussie dollar opens up for the week. If instead, you know, you want to just continue to trade flow, if we see the dollar push up past that red line that we were just talking about in the 104s, and just do kind of a sideways reaccumulation situation, then we would just look for a flow retest relative to this intraday push here that broke us out of this range, right? So here was the hint. Here was the manipulation, sort of sleight of hand, and then the huge rejection coming into Friday. Um, New York session Friday. And it finished low. I would say that we should go look into this area here because there's certainly some sort of liquidity and decision made there, but tons of relative equal lows in this region, right? Lots and lots and lots of theoretical buyers, and even stop losses lower than this. So a short still makes sense, especially if we see dollar domination continue into this week. With that in mind, I would say we can now sort of kill that range and start to look within that region there, just as a basic massively wide AOI. Trim it down into that. So there's your pivot. And then in theory, I would say there might be an expansion here, but it looks pretty weak. It looks like price just kind of fell out of the sky from this region up here. So probably target this upper range for some sort of sell side retest. Yeah. So clearly this was the sort of tipping point here, right? Selling orders started to come in here. Price moved up into that area, slightly overshot the previous sort of major supply right here. Just really retested the highs almost exactly, if not exactly. And then really sent it from right here. This is the point where the liquidity scales sort of switched and buyers couldn't hold up anymore. So either they pulled out their positions and we saw this free fall, or sellers added on in a big way. Either way, this purple zone now represents seller domination. That's where sellers are currently controlling market order from. Excuse me. Look for a retest within this region. I would definitely set an alert right here just as a broad idea for the week. And that's really that. Downside targets are going to be certainly right here. I would actually go with that region right there. And we'll make that like this just because it's a little bit of a speed bump target. Be cognizant of this liquidity here. You know, anything can happen as you start to get into that imbalance preceding the big move. So it doesn't mean that this zone's going to get hit fully. It might just get tapped. It might get blown through. It's certainly sort of acting as a magnet for further downside. We want to see some sort of reload and then, you know, transition and attempt to push lower. Ideally. This could be a really good setup intra-week. So definitely keep this in mind. If price just sort of comes back up into the range and then fiddles around or even briefly pierces into a new high, I would not look for a short immediately. I would have to be a lot more patient, exercise a lot more patience there. Yeah, so with upside dollar this week, look for downside AU, hopefully a retest on this. Same deal is going to go for GU. Delete some of these things, lots of these things. So broke the H4 zone here. I think this is pretty major. And this is also going to indicate that I bet you on a slightly higher time frame that that's an interesting little expansion point there. Okie dokie. Oh, hey, now all my news buttons are working. We were talking about this week in sessions. Okay, so let's take that off because that looks sort of unimportant. And what I want to highlight here is that this was our previous weekly and daily demand, right? Price pierced below this. What happens if price gets below this flow low now, or this trend low, actually, trend low? What would happen, right? Answer that question. What does that tell us? I think that tells us that the British pound is in the shitter. And if the dollar continues to be strong, we potentially have really good plays back down for 100 to 200 plus pips towards this other major weekly demand, monthly demand, most likely into the 123s. So this could play out a few ways. the most ideal way, I think, would be that we see it tap into a new low and then come back and reload, much like what we're looking for on AU, and then just keep on keeping on and creeping down with news. Now, that could get really choppy because it's pound, it's cable. This pair can do that. But in terms of the actual trend, this retest here obviously would have been beautiful to get in on last week, and it's certainly something that you're going to want to, in theory, go back and back test. How could you have taken advantage of either, this window here into New York Friday or into really New York Wednesday? Could you have taken advantage of that in some fashion? If and how? Because it's a great move. And also, what would it take for it to continue? I think a reload back into this area is the clearest, not always the best thing to be really clear, but this is probably the clearest opportunity in terms of liquidity. So let's drop a box on there. And I just want to go back to the 4-hour very briefly and mark out this break of flow. Just verify this is a strong break of flow right here, right? This helps us find and validate these areas that we are looking at. Okay, back to the details. So we can go in and refine this a little bit, but this is, penultimately the first area that I would anticipate price is going to come back down into. It's sitting in a little bit of a liquidity bubble right now. Again, lots of relative equal lows like we saw on AU. But this is, obviously a point of decision here from that big move to the upside. So this needs to get cracked for us to really consider that retest opportunity and further bearish movement. If price can't break below this, we're just going to range up, and it may actually blow past this and just fuck around. So I think that this... Oh, all caps. I'm not yelling, I swear. Fuck me. All right. Boom. Peppered with some language for you too. This is going to be an important indication of who is going to try and assert control of flow this week, in my opinion. Why? Major decision was already made here. Clearly, lots of liquidity indicated by this sort of pivot into, big move again, bigger move, back up into that just zone to zone whale trading, right? Now price has got a bunch of fucking momentum from all that news, NFP and unemployment data on Friday. It doesn't mean that momentum is going to continue because there's not necessarily a fundamental catalyst early in the week, but with those sort of larger events in the US this week and anything that might be medium impact, it could spur some sort of speculation that could break below this. Regardless, if price breaks below this, I think it shows us that sellers are going to continue to try and reach lower price points. For me, it doesn't need to get all the way below 25.4, though that would be a great indication. If it gets below this area here, then I will consider the retest of flow and look for, again, just load up on some shorts and look for it to go below 25,400 then, really. Clear below this area, below these previous lows. So if we get a crank below this, then look for the retest there. But if instead price just bounces off this region here, Be really careful. I'm not going to play the upside range just because, again, this thing does have a lot of momentum to the downside last week, and it's trending down high time frame. But you want to be extra cautious and look for lots of confirms here, because if price cranks above this, it's going to sweep out all the retail traders looking at these same potential ripples in the pond, sweep them out into here, and then probably drop back down. So just if it doesn't break below this and it comes back up, exert a little bit more patience. If it does crack below that, then we'll certainly want to pay attention to that retest there. So what I'm going to do is go like this and go like that, extend that a little bit, extend that. Oops. There you go. Bada bang, bada boom. Cool. And then for NASDAQ, while I haven't really been trading NASDAQ much lately, because to be totally frank with you, it just doesn't make fucking sense to me why this is so resilient. There's such a small concentration of companies holding up such a valuable market. It is mind-boggling. Nevertheless, we are seeing lots of upside pressure here still. We do have a daily flow switch and then this fresh trend expansion to the upside. So again, you would just kind of be looking for signs that this might start to break here, and then look for a retest maybe back into that area or even down here at some point during the week to try and load up and hit back into these highs, or price is just going to kind of sit sideways and continue to move upwards, where you could then look for your, some sort of breakout opportunity for the week. This one I'm not going to mark up because I already have all my high time frame stuff done. I could go like this and say that this is an area that I'm interested in and I want to watch this. Boom. Right. Two things to just look at, check back in on, again, after the long weekend sort of comes to an end there. Haven't really been looking at EJ or GJ all too much, but they are clearly still trending upwards. After this massive liquidity sweep in July, we can see that price has just kind of been choppy and sideways, but overall trending upwards. Looks like it theoretically played back into that little expansion area that gave us those fresh trend highs there. So that could be something interesting if you wanted to back test that from a technical aspect. And then we're coming back into that area again now. So, if you were to see, for those of you paying attention to it, a break of flow here on the H4 and some sort of opportunity like that, that could be a good one to play back into these highs here or higher. That's certainly a theoretically interesting idea. However, if price breaks below that region right there, then this provided that fresh expansion of trend to the upside. So I would say just be really careful there. We'll actually label that as our H4 major demand. And yeah, that's that. We were talking about this briefly this week. I think there's good opportunities, especially with how much news is coming out this week during Sydney session in Tokyo. I think there's good opportunities in Asian session. So it may be something that I actually watch this week, just with how much stuff is coming out of RBA and how much stuff is coming out of the BOJ. Could be theoretical opportunities here. Obviously stay abreast of Eurozone information as well, but yeah. So there's your theoretical idea. GJ, interesting. So a little bit of a demand turn supply retest there, and now price is sort of coming back to again test this area. This is very choppy and rangy, but I would play it pretty much the same and say that that's your sort of major demand there. And if price cranks above that level, I would want to know. let's just call that supply. Let's just call that demand, H4 demand, major or daily demand. Yeah, if price gets above that, then, you know, maybe theoretically look for some sort of play back into these highs here, where you then have a break or a bounce into that level and or new highs. Something like that. And then that key 187,646 from way over there, but a major liquidity pocket we've been talking about for months. If price can transition above this, trade it into this zone. If it can go above that, I would anticipate that this is going to get knocked out, but there's certainly a little bit of turbulence living there, so be careful. Mark something out like this. There you go. And, you know, this one actually, let's go and dive in just a little bit right there. Because I think interesting. To be fair, I don't know GJ as well as I do most other pairs, but I would say that sort of like this, let's just say that region right there, I would anticipate some sort of turbulence if price retests that area. Maybe even a little bit more broad, honestly, like maybe into like right here. That's just like a safe warning track area. Right. But yeah, so that's how I would play that heading into this new week for EJ and GJ. And that's really about it. So look for some important indications on the dollar. Just keep abreast of major events that are coming out for the currency pairs that you watch. I will not be on Monday, but I will be on Tuesday through Friday. So yeah, hope you guys are having a good weekend. Enjoy the long weekend, and we will talk in session soon.